Hello and welcome to Fin24. In studio we have Colin Daries, who is the chairperson of the Western Cape Business Opportunity Forum. Welcome, Colin.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to speak about business, and welcome to your viewers.
Colin, let's get to it. Do you think that Minister Pravin Gordhan's Budget 2017 is going to have a huge impact on small and medium enterprises in South Africa?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. If you look at an impact, it could be a negative impact, it could be a positive impact. I don't believe that it's got any positive impact. You know, for government to spend money on small business and to create a pot of gold from the fiscus is one thing, you know. But to access that money is another thing, and that's been a huge issue for many years. Organizations like ourselves have been complaining, you know, just the red tape to access that money. So that's one thing.
So what you're saying is it's one thing to say, oh, there's money being made available for small businesses, but small businesses in reality struggle to access the money.
Absolutely. It's a known fact that even government agencies like the Small Enterprise Finance Agency will tell you statistically that more white business is still accessing the money that is supposed to be meant for small black business development, and that's the reality.
Why?
Because it's just the, if you look at the amount of paperwork, if you look at you know, the penalties of how they look at you when they rate whether you could possibly access this money, it's just not there's just not enough political will in there to say, listen, we're going to actually trust this jockey. We're going to trust a little bit that black business can deliver, and that they can pay the money back. You know, there's more reasons for not giving them money than reasons to want to give them money. You know, but more so, you know, I don't think it's just about money. It's about how, and this is what we never hear from the budget. You know, is how do we create more business opportunities for black business, because that's where the real issue lies, right? Because the reality is there are a lot of small business that can do without money, but they can't do without opportunities to actually create work, you know? And that is the contentious issue. That's what we not speak about enough. If you look at how we deal with that through either the BE codes, you know, and regulation, and until we understand that we can't just regulate that space, but that there must be a little bit more political will, that corporates need to come to the table and not look at enterprise development for argument's sake and supply development and say, how do we make money out of this, you know? Yeah. How do we actually just develop this economy, you know? They've got enough to go around, you know, but the same with government. I also don't believe that there's enough will to actually say, listen, how do we aggressively open the space, and be that via JVs. The reality is government and corporate look at small business very often, and they find excuses as to why they can't engage. You know, they're either too small, they're either not trustworthy, you know, they're either not this, they're either not that, but there's a whole host of excuses as to why we can't engage in business.
Something that also comes to the fore very much is the fact that you need specialized personnel just to sometimes be filling out the forms for you to access.
Correct.
And now we're talking about a small business where you have to be the owner, you have to be the driver, you have to be the invoicer, you have to be the scribe, you have to be the person making the goods, and you now have to go and employ somebody.
Correct.
So that you may possibly get access to an opportunity.
Correct. You see, for as long as we have this risk-averse approach, it's going to be very difficult to kickstart the economy. If you look at how money prior to 1994 were dispersed by banks, you know, you had a branch manager, you know, a guy would go to a branch manager, the branch manager get a good feel about this guy, and he makes that call. Today you don't have that. Everything is centralized. You know, some other computer decide the lot of your application, you know. And the reality is government is towing those same lines. You know, nobody that sits opposite you can make the decision. It goes to a particular forum. People don't have a feel of you. It's based on the paperwork. Now, I'm not saying that we must lend irresponsibly. I believe that we need to have a little bit more political will to say, how do we kickstart these things? Because half of the money don't get spent. The question is why.
Something that is also very interesting is that 35% of the South African labor force is unemployed. Would it not make sense for government to vigorously support SMMEs who would then go and take from that unemployed workforce and create jobs and create employment and put food on the table? Because we do find that somebody in the unemployment state that they are is not actually going to get a job from a corporate as easily as what he may find a job with an SMME. So would it not make sense to be pushing and vigorously pushing for SMMEs to succeed?
That is undoubtedly what we should be doing. The question is, are we doing that? The answer is no. I think we have become way too dependent on corporate taxes, you know, and taxing the wealth instead of focusing on how do we actually kickstart this whole tier of small and medium-sized enterprise business, you know, instead of saying how do we save ourselves from them, you know. And just remember, the more tax they pay, or the pressure that they are under right now, the more it erodes their cash flow, you know, the more they can't employ people. So I don't think, I don't even want to speak about the regulatory spaces. I don't think our environment is friendly for small business. And you've mentioned it earlier that they must be everything. They must be the drivers, they must be the CEOs, they must be the accountants. And because of that particular dynamics, I mean, if you look at any big business, I mean, they've got the corporates have legal departments, they've got compliance departments, they've got finance departments. So it's easy for them, you know, to comply to anything that government wants, and that's why they still continue to access the money so easily, you know. But if you need to do all of those things while your only focus as a small business is to how do I complete that job so that I can actually have the money so that I can feed my kids and maybe pay the 1 or 2 or 3 people that works for me and pay the rent and the basic stuff, right? And how do we get to the new one? So your question about employment is undoubtedly answered within the fact that we need to actually have more political will to start kick-starting, and we need to understand what are those things to kick-start it. And one of those things is to get rid of the red tape, you know, and trust a little bit more, you know, that these people are not all a bunch of crooks, because that's, you know, just a thing that's out there that small business are just good enough for the crumbs. We only actually just good enough to do the small things. There is no hand holding at the moment, you know, they're completely on their own, they are isolated. They are given contracts most of the time to sometimes kill them, you know what I'm saying?
Would the option of mentorship not then come in yet, perhaps?
I believe if government are serious about it, that's the one thing that they got to do. They gotta look at, if we give money, how do we make sure that money actually ends up, you know, delivering the desired result? And mentorship is one of those things. So we must employ mentors and coaches with the money that we. Then we know, you know, that we're actually looking at a holistic picture, because often small business are people that only understand their craft. They might not be as well versed in finance, for argument's sake. They might not be as well versed in things like compliance, right? But they understand.
When they fail due to lack of knowledge on compliance and due to lack of knowledge on finance.
Then we look at them and we think they're all bad people, you know, but they're not. They understand their craft. So we need to aid them, you know, and I think that's part of what an organization like WIGBOF does is to create that sustainability, and how do we coach people, and how do we direct them, and how do we give them access to the opportunities and training and finance that we need to sustain a proper business.
What else do you think you would have liked to see in Budget 2017?
Maybe one thing that I personally would have wanted to see was that a better focus. You know, if one of the biggest challenges in this country is unemployment, and we know that, and that's the one thing that will actually kickstart this economy. If we know that is, and we know where the answer lies, which is in the development of small business, we know that as a matter of fact. why is it that we are not crafting the legislation in such a way that it actually becomes a practical thing, you know, so that we can actually look at a picture and say, okay, so now government understand this, and not just put 1.3 or 1.4 billion rand out there and say, right, that's our budget for small business development. But what does that actually mean, you know?
Because what does it actually mean to the person running his or her small business on the ground?
It means, to him, 1.4 billion rand means nothing, because if he struggles to access it, it means nothing, you know?
Yeah.
How I would have wanted to see more aggressively, you know, the opportunity space, you know, how government look at corporates and even themselves and say, listen, we want to up the targets for access to black business within the economic framework. There's way too little spoken about that, right? There's huge focuses on a lot of other areas, but the one thing that can create employment, I don't think there's enough attention given to it.
Thank you so much, Colin. Thanks for your really valuable insights, and it really does make us look at small and medium enterprises a lot differently. I think we actually as a society also have to come and see the value of our own community.
Absolutely.
And how they can actually play a huge role in combating the 35% unemployment that we've got happening right now.
We can't ignore small business. We can't ignore medium business. That is our future.